What is up, everybody? It is Mr. M, and today I am back with my top 10 favorite records of 2017. In the background, if you can hear it, hopefully you can, Interdimensional Extinction by Blood Incantation is what's playing. One of the best death metal bands out right now. So yeah, my 10 favorite records of this year. What I will say is, obviously there's only 10 spots, so there's going to be a lot of records that aren't in this top 10. And also, this is my list, so if you don't like that a certain record didn't get on here, make your own. Because asking me why a certain record didn't end up in the top 10 is fucking pointless. It's my top 10, not yours. And as I said in my last video, if you watched it, I didn't really listen to a whole load of new releases this year. I was either going back into bands' discographies or I was discovering new music from bands that didn't put out anything this year. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Also, if you watched the last video I did, I also said I'm not really good at ordering things. So the only record on here that is in order is going to be the last one that I show, which will be the best, my favorite record, in my opinion. So, let's get started on this. Number 10. Ailstorm, No Grave But the Sea. Either the 5th or 6th record from these guys, I can't remember. These guys are taking themselves less seriously than ever before. Given the fact that this is a deluxe version and the second disc has all the vocals replaced with dogs barking. So that right there should say that these guys don't really care what other people think of them with the humor. But in terms of the content, there's a lot of really great pirate metal type stuff, opening with the title track and then Right into Mexico, and then you have the song Ailstorm and the obnoxiously ridiculous song Fucked with an Anchor, which you either cringed when I said that or you laughed. And you'll do the same thing when you listen to that song. It is fucking ridiculous. But 10 songs of solid pirate metal. This record I don't think really got a whole load of attention though, because I think them not taking themselves so seriously is what some people kind of just wrote them off for that. But in my book, it is a pretty solid record, worthy of being in the top 10. Next up is Graveyard Shift by Motionless in White. Their 4th record, first on Roadrunner Records. Motionless in White kind of went back to their roots in a way. They put a lot more electronics into this record than they have in the last couple of records. Except instead of, like, if you compare this record to their first one, instead of the electronics being like really trancey EDM type shit, it's more industrial type electronics that you expect to be on like a Rammstein record or something like that. It opens with Rats, and then it goes into Queen for Queen, The Necessary Evil with Jonathan Davis on doing guest vocals on that. It's just a strolid opening. And then Soft, some people say it's the heaviest song on the record. I kind of disagree with that. And then you got songs like Untouchable and Not My Type, which those songs in particular have more of the EDM type electronics into it. And then it ends with 570, Hourglass, and Eternally Yours. 570 and Eternally Yours being the first 2 singles off of the record. And I kind of like that they did that, because if you really want to listen to the entire record, they intentionally made it so the singles were in the back, so you would need to listen to the entire record before you got to what would be considered the good songs, quote unquote. Next up, Death Revenge by Exhumed. I feel like this was a hit or miss record for some people. It's a concept record, which generally means it is hit or miss, but And when it's a concept record, it usually piques my attention because those are sort of my favorite ones. It opens up, if you get the vinyl version, as I obviously have here, both sides of the record open up with a kind of thematic, theatric, symphonic type thing that would be in like a movie, which is of course what they were going for with this record. And then after the overture, which is the first track, it goes right into Defenders of the Grave, which might have been the first single, I'm not for sure. And then it goes into Lifeless, Dead End, Night Work, which I feel like ripped off Slayer a bit, but it's still a killer song nonetheless. And then you go on to side B, you have the interlude, which kicks off the record, and then you go to the Harrowing, A Funeral Party, and then ending on the title track. This record is a bit more, the production was a bit more polished, I feel, as opposed to other Exhumed records. Not my favorite Exhumed record by any means. However, for what it's worth, and it being a concept record, it's a pretty great record. And one of the guys, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he ended up coming back for this record, so that got a lot of people hyped up for it too. Next up, a record that's been on a lot of year-end lists. This band, Wergoat, Pestilential Rites of Inferno Fornication. That fucking album artwork is goddamn killer. Blackened, death metal, blackened death, bestial, war metal, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I can't pick out a particular song in here that is better than the rest, because this entire record just flows together so well. It's 10 songs, a little less than 40 minutes, so I feel like that's kind of on the shorter side for a full-length record. But the way that it just flows from song to song, it's just fucking perfect. Like I said, I can't really pick out a specific song. Just listen to this entire thing. And I'm sure if you're not one to pay attention to the songs, it will just fly by too. Next up, if you know me, you definitely knew this was going to be in here. Red Before Black by Cannibal Corpse. Their 14th record. Still going solid after almost 30 years. As I talked about in the Cannibal Corpse video I did a couple weeks ago, I saw them live. They performed 5 songs off of this, and I can't really find a song in here that's lacking. It is all just really killer shit. One song after another. These guys, I feel like they were one of the bands that created a solid blueprint for death metal, and they're still doing it almost 30 years later. Just listen to the entire thing. 12 songs, a little over 45 minutes, standard Cannibal Corpse length for a record. And maybe you'll find something, maybe you'll find some good songs, or maybe you'll find some shit songs. I don't know, but for me, it's a good record, start to finish. So, check the shit out. Now, another record that a lot of people have been talking about, and I don't think I'm probably going to talk about it that much. Eroded Corridors of Unbeing by Spectral Voice. Death Doom out of Denver, Colorado, where I'm from. I got the slipcase version. That slipcase, or the slipcase on it looks cool as fuck, I think. But disembowelment comparisons are on point, but they're not a disembowelment clone. I think I'm really going to leave it at that, because if you've heard about this record, anything I say it's just going to be repetitive of what everyone else is saying. And if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it, because it is a solid record. This next one, Mirror Reaper by Bellwitch. That album cover is fucking killer. One song, 83 minutes long. And then there's the full album cover. The full artwork, I should say. But, I've only listened to this record probably 3 times in full, which is kind of, since it is an hour and a half long almost, you do have to kind of sit down and really listen to it. For those who don't know, Bellwitch out of Seattle, Washington. This is their 3rd full length. And the one thing they did, which I like Funeral Doom a lot, especially when I have shit to do, because it makes it so much more fun. But they don't force it. Like, it's not 83 minutes because it's forced. Like 4 or 5 songs that were all forced together to be one solid song. It all just flows, much like the Wergoat album, except there's no breaks in between, because obviously it's one song. So there are breaks in it because it has to fit on 2 CDs or 4 sides of an LP. So the only way to listen to it without any interruption is digitally. And if you do it, like I said, if you try to put any analyzation into it, you're just going to be sitting there for fucking ever. But it's definitely worth it, because it is a solid Funeral Doom record that made a lot of people's year-end list. I don't know who it was or what magazine it was, but it ended up as number 1, and it's definitely worthy of it. Next up, Emulation with Atonement. Another record that I don't think this record made anyone's number 1 spot, but it definitely made it into top 10s and top 20s, because Emulation is doing what Emulation does best, and that is making a death metal record that is fucking good. All the songs on here from start to finish, starting with the Distorted Light, When the Jackals Come, all the way down to Power of the Gods and Epiphany. There isn't really one bad song on this record, and it's a lot better than their last couple of records, which everyone has been saying. And they need to fucking come to Colorado, because I need to see them live. But aside from that, in the middle, you got Rise the Heretics, Throne to Fire, Destructive Currents, such solid death metal songs, and that old school logo. Even though they never wanted to get rid of it, I'm glad to see it back on the cover of an Emulation record. Next up, second to last, we have Dying Fetus, Wrong One to Fuck With, which that might have made some of you cringe, but that album cover though is just fucking brutal. And just like the Emulation record, Dying Fetus doing what Dying Fetus does good, making a solid Dying Fetus record. 10 tracks, 11 if you got the CD, double LP if you got the vinyl. Opens with Fixated on Devastation, then goes into Panic Amongst the Herd, and then Die with Integrity, and then closing out with the title track. It's just a fucking solid record, and that was, I guess you could say, 5 years in the making, maybe. It was 5 years between this record and Reign Supreme, and it was definitely worth the wait, because there was not one bad song on this album. And I feel like it's pointless to say to check this out if you haven't, because it's Dying Fetus. They're one of the best brutal death metal bands around. And if you haven't checked it out, you're either not a fan or you're living under a fucking rock. So if you are living under a rock, fix that and listen to this record. Now we have the last record. My favorite record to come out in 2017. And I knew this record was going to be on here from the first time I listened to it in full, which was probably in February, even though this record came out at the end of January. Gods of Violence by Creator. Again, just like the Dying Fetus record, 5-year wait between their previous record, Phantom Antichrist, and this one. And it's definitely worth the wait, because this record, in my opinion, is so much better than Phantom Antichrist, and I love that record. You got the opening track, the intro, Apocalypticon, which just sets this record up perfectly. Then it goes into World War Now, Satan is Real, and Totalitarian Terror. World War Now gets overlooked so fucking much. It's kind of irritating, because that song is a fucking thrash metal masterpiece. And then Satan is Real and Totalitarian Terror into the B-side, Gods of Violence, An Army of Storms. That entire LP, first LP, is just nothing but bangers. Every song is just fucking one after another, fucking strong as fuck. And then you get into the second LP, side C. You got Hail to the Hordes, which ended up becoming a single very recently. And then Fallen Brother, which became a single shortly after the album released. I want to say it became a single at the end of February. Don't quote me on that, though. And then Lying with Eagle's Wings. I'm kind of iffy on that song. That's the only song I'm sort of iffy on. I feel like if that song wasn't on here, it would have been a fucking perfect fucking record. And then you got Side D, which Side by Side and Death Becomes My Light. A beautiful closing to a phenomenal record. I don't think I can say that this comes anywhere close to Endless Pain or Pleasure to Kill or Extreme Aggression or any of their first 5 records, but it is still a solid one nonetheless. I feel like this is definitely their best since Violent Revolution, which, weirdly enough, I've said that about their last 2 records, but I really mean it about this one. This one, it tops Phantom Antichrist. It tops all the records between Violent Revolution and this one. So, if you're a thrash fan, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but check this one out because it is a banger. 11 solid tracks. And then there was a couple of extra tracks that they did for a Record Store Day. And they did a flexi disc with Decibel magazine, which had 1 song on there. Well, fuck this, I'll do this later. Alright, anyway, that concludes my list of my favorite records of 2017. If anyone cares to, leave a comment telling me what your favorite records are. And since, as I said, this video already and the last one, I didn't check out that many new releases this year. Maybe I'll listen to it. Maybe I've already listened to it because Scourge of Vinyl did a top 50, Ross Hodo did a top 40, Decibel Magazine does a top 40. So I was figuring out about all this new music within the last couple of weeks. So if you care to, drop your favorite records of this year down in the comments below. Hopefully hopefully everything I said in this video made sense. Hopefully it didn't sound repetitive with some records, which I know I do sometimes because the records are just that good. But if you like this video, leave a like. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you for watching if you made it the whole 20 minutes. And I'll see you in the new year. Have a great new year. Have a hopefully, there I go fucking running over my words. Hopefully those of you had a happy Christmas or happy whatever that you celebrate. Hope you guys have a happy new year. And I'll see you in my next video.